No sooner than this issue was settled, the question of revenue allocation cropped up. The East, within whose territory there had suddenly been rapid expansion in oil production, wanted to retain all oil royalties. This meant changing the constitutional formula, which allocated 50% of mineral resources to region of origin, while the rest went 30 to 20 to the federal government and the distributable pool. Being increasingly hard-pressed financially, the other regions simply did not want any alteration in the allocation principle relating to need and population, nor did the sole commissioner, Mr. Kenneth J. Beans, appointed to examine the matter, share the Eastern view. What is he saying here? Let me explain. It's about to get really, really interesting. So, in the 1950s, the regions essentially depended on agricultural produce. The governments of the regions depended on revenue from agricultural exports. And the North had cotton, the West had cocoa, the East had palm oil. The West also had palm oil as well, and also had rubber at some point. But cocoa was the mainstay. Now, they talked about the basis of allocation of resources. And the East said, we want to have allocation of resources based on need. In other words, whatever it is you make or I make should not be what determines the kind of development I have in my region. If, for instance, this month I was only able to generate 20 pounds when I joined out, 20 pounds back then, and in the West you generated 100 pounds in the West, and maybe 80 pounds in the North. But the East has this need. They have a project that they're going to require like 60 pounds or maybe even 80 pounds to generate. The West and the North should be able to contribute to help the East out because they need that money. So it's not based on productivity, it's based on need. That was the proposal of Eastern region. Stay with me. The proposal of the Eastern region is to have a need-based allocation formula. And that didn't work. There was another formula that was, put out, the Raisman proposal, that makes a lot of sense. And they had a 50-30-20 ratio kind of, allocation formula, where the region that is producing that mineral resource, or region that is having that revenue, whether through agriculture or whatever, gets to keep 50% of what they have generated. Then they put 30% in a distributable pool, which they will share amongst all the regions. Then there's 20% for the federal government, which the federal government will use capital projects, paying, salaries, civil servants and stuff like that. So that was the formula they had. And everybody, people came up with they agreed to that formula rather than the need-based or population. It used to be population or need, but now they just use 50-30-20. And that was good. What that means basically is this. If the Western region generated 100 pounds selling cocoa, the Western region will keep 50 pounds. 30 pounds of that money will go into a pool that the East, the West, and the North will share from. Then the remaining 20 pounds exclusively to the federal government. And everybody was okay. So the same thing for the North. Whatever you generated in the East, even if you generated 20 pounds, you take 50%, take 10 pounds, then you drop the remaining. As soon as oil was discovered in Oloibiri in commercial quantity, like I've said it before, that the first place oil was discovered in Nigeria. This might come up in the Republic game show. So if you want to participate, please be learning this. I'm giving you a Orijo Expo. The first place oil was discovered in Nigeria is a place called Araromi. It's in Ondo State. Right? 1908. It was by a German company, but they had to let it go because of World War I. Okay. 1956, oil was first discovered in commercial quantity in Oloibiri, which happens to be part of the Eastern region at the time. As soon as that started, the Eastern region came with a new proposal, And the proposal was to keep 100% of what they were producing. This is a person we've been sharing money with all these years because we are doing good people, great nation. 30% distributable pool. Then comes along and says they wanted to keep 100% of the royalties. What that means basically is this: if Shell was exploring in that space, Shell will pay royalties to the government. So the Eastern region wanted to keep all of the money that comes from that. Not too different from what's happening right now, by the way, but let's continue. All this while, the labor union, by the way, nobody agreed to that nonsense. It says this meant changing, but let me go back and read that thing. The East, within whose territory there had suddenly been rapid expansion in oil production, wanted to retain all oil royalties. This meant changing the constitutional formula, which allocated 50% of mineral revenues to region of origin, while the rest went 30-20 to the federal government and the distributable pool. Being increasingly hard-pressed financially, the other regions simply did not want any alteration in the allocation principle relating to need and population. Nor did the sole commissioner, Mr. Kenneth J. Beans, appointed to examine the matter, share the Eastern view.